Well, everybody, welcome back to this episode of the Trick Podcast of Joy. Where is my ghost bell? Here it is. Right there. Welcome back to my channel. Why is Andrew Tate so important to the church? Why we should listen? Why, even though his message is just horrible and it's really hurting a lot of people, especially a lot of women and their mental health, I would say. But when you have 16, million people that are signed onto his program, to Hustler University, then you have to pay attention, especially because most of them are young men between the ages of 18 and 23, 22. And so when you have that much of a relatability or connection to young men, you have to pay attention as the church, especially because obviously for a lot of us, that is the age that concerns us and that we know needs the most guidance, men and women, of course, young people in general, and especially the modern church needing to connect better to, that would be what, Gen Z, I believe, right? Young people. And so I think we have to always be, as I like to call it, pioneers, missionaries, to always be missional minded people. Missional meaning that we're thinking of how does the mission of God, the gospel, fit in this particular context. And anytime to me that millions of people are listening to one person, as evil as it may be, you could say this about many people, you need to listen to what exactly is the heart's cry of these young men. Because here's something that, as I've listened to hours of his content, as well as Fresh and Fit, and as well as a lot of his detractors, H3, and many others, is that young people aren't saying that the things that he's saying are necessarily true, and the accusations about his sex trafficking and all the things that he's accused of that might be true. No one is saying, I'm certainly not saying, that those things should be forbidden, should be allowed or excused. But my point is that most of the young people, as I'm reading a lot of the comments and seeing a lot of young people post videos in support of him, especially that now that he's been banned from Twitter and Twitch and YouTube, it shows that young people identify with him saying that young men need to be paid attention to. And that is, I think, why this matters. So I want to play a little bit of a clip here from, he's done so many interviews since his ban. So if you don't know who he is, first just do a quick search. I mean, he is the number one Googled person in the world right now. And so there you have that. Second, he has just moved all his content to Rumble, right? Yeah, that's what it's called. And he even quotes scripture, him and his brother, about why they moved to Rumble and kind of what's happening. And if you are a Trump supporter, I am not. I'm on the other side of that whole thing. Then you know about how people that are being canceled, they're moving to these other platforms. So that's what he just did, because he was canceled because of these accusations, from misogyny to rape to just the way he talks about women and sex trafficking, and all these things that are out there that I think some of it seems to me that is a lot of just kind of going after him, and some of it is probably true. But here's my point. I'm not even here to argue his innocence or not. I think that anyone who talks this way about anyone, much less women, needs to be checked out up here, or he's just kind of a thief and a robber and just trying to get money from people, which is probably what he's doing. By the way, I'm in Hawaii right now, so hope you like my background. Trying to keep it fresh for you guys, speaking of fresh. But young people, young men especially, they may hide this from you at church. They may not be into it, but millions of young men, 18 to 22, this is not about porn. This is not about anything except the usual things that young men are looking for, at least that they present as the things that young men are looking for. Girls, fast cars, money, right? Those three things. Oh, and a fit body, of course. And so like Ty Lopez, like Grant Cardone, like many others that are out there, Andrew Tate has used the same typical techniques to draw young men into his world. And so now he's delivering his message. And so the reason why, especially I think to me this matters, is because he mostly talks about relationships. At least that's one of the big things that he talks about. The need, this is kind of like, what's the other one? Besides Fresh and Fit, there's the other African-American man who wears nice suits. Harvey something, he just recently passed away, so that is horrible. But there's another, I think, Harvey or something, I forget his name. So there's a few of these channels that are kind of against what you would say is the typical, the whole Jake Paul and all that kind of sleep around and just be lazy and YouTuber and be a Twitcher and you'll be a millionaire. He kind of like Jordan Peterson, but with definitely a harder edge. He's talking about traditional values and traditional men roles and the rational male, Rollo, I forget his last name, Tolley. He also kind of fits into this category of traditional men roles, and like I said, the rational male versus the emotional kind of weak man that a lot of these people who speak believe we have around or we have raised, which is not a new concept, nor is it necessarily wrong or not true. So amidst all of that, you have, as I said, a lot of opposition to what Andrew Tate is saying, rightly so. I would say I oppose 90% of what he's saying, but here is what I think is important. As I said, it's this idea of young men needing to have better mentors than perhaps our own fathers, than perhaps maybe our own churches to some degree, our own leaders and pastors, etc. And the importance of having the church, and this is why my podcast is so, to me, that's why I'm here, that we need content that is helping young men and young women, but just specifically talking about young men, to understand what a biblical man is supposed to do, biblical manhood, and including what a rational male is. And in light of debt, in light of past mistakes, in light of dating, in light of dating apps, in light of perhaps of going through different challenges as a young man. Maybe you have a child out of wedlock and you've been through some sort of, a lot of problems, and now you're trying to honor God, and yet you're maybe having to decide between church and work or all these things that you're dealing with, or maybe you don't even do church anymore. You're just kind of doing your own thing, and your mentors don't exist. Now it's just your friends, your partners, your buddies, your fantasy football gang, and whatever it may be, or worse, right? Drug addiction and gang life and all the rest. And so the church, I think, as I said, needs to understand why this is so appealing. So I want to play a little clip of what Mr. Tate is talking about so you can kind of get a sense, if you haven't heard his stuff, of what he's doing. Let's see here. How do I do this really quick here? Just think I'm going to do that. Okay, so I think this should work. So let's see here if you can hear this. Let's see. Let's see if you can hear this. I think you will.
For that. They banned me simply because I had large swaths of the population agreeing to very traditional masculine values. Teenage men and young men, 22, 23, 24, were looking up to me and aspiring to be like me. I have a very traditionally masculine life. I have fast cars and a big house and a lot of money and a beautiful girlfriend. And they thought this was very, very threatening. And for some reason, they decided that it's better if they annihilate me from the internet and replace me with somebody who's more aligned with whatever they're trying to purport.
Tell us what your message is to young men.
Yeah, so I think that being a man is very, very difficult. I think that men's issues are largely overlooked. The people in charge of the world pretend to care, but when somebody who's championing men's issues like myself comes forward and finally manages to garner huge percentiles of the public support, I'm silenced. So they're not really interested in men's issues. And there's a lot of young men growing up today that feel very disaffected. They feel invisible. The agendas that are being forced down their throats are not agendas they align with or they feel affinity to or agendas they want. And I basically just say to men, look, it's a very hard life. You're going to need to get up, work hard, go to the gym. Strong body is a strong mind. You're going to have to reject listening blindly to everything you're told, reject the slave mind, think for yourself, get a strong network of brothers, work aside them. Don't tolerate low quality people in your life, which means don't tolerate men who just smoke drugs and play video games, or men who are disloyal or dishonest. By extension, don't tolerate women or girlfriends who are disloyal or dishonest, and try and build and create a reality full of high quality people in which you can resist the programming that the Matrix tries to influence you with, and grow up truly happy. And what
So we'll pause there. So that's a little bit of what he talks about and kind of his rhetoric. And if you really hear his actual podcast, I think it's called Tate Speech. He actually has no shirt on and he's muscular, and often he's smoking a cigar with his brother in Romania where they live, probably running away from the law and from justice here in the States. And so you have a lot of those issues that are definitely there. And so when you hear his actual podcast, he's kind of like this, but I mean, obviously way less tempered. Here he is on a show and blah, blah, blah. And CNN hasn't done a thing on him. Otherwise, I'd show CNN. I'm more of a CNN guy myself, but whatever, right? It's all the same thing. But my point is that he's talking about these issues that young men are interested in. Being a man's man, not letting people run you over, not being weak, not being hyper emotional, not being drugged in terms of antidepressants and suicidal thoughts, and not just simply being medicated for every little emotion that we have as men, especially. And to learn, he won't call it this way, but now this is me speaking, biblical manhood. And what does it mean to be a strong and yet tender and sensitive man of God? Now, where he goes off the rails is where he then begins to speak dismissively of women. When he begins to say, like you heard there, that we need to control them and put them in their place. And that's where, for me, this whole thing goes south really fast. But I think that the teaching needs to still be there about what a young man needs, how he needs to respond or be or treat young women. All of this is very important teaching that is lacking in the church, in the school, anywhere. It's just not being taught. It's nowhere. And so when this man, who is a I think MMA boxer, he's no spiritual leader or scholar or who knows necessarily the biology of young people. His father was a homeless man who was a grandmaster chess player, from what he says. So my point is that it's not exactly someone that we should be turning to. And yet millions of young men, and probably some young women too, are turning to him and Fresh and Fit and these other places to say, yes, we need to be stronger young men. And so I think that is my point. Well, I know that's my point, but I think that is what we can learn. The gap is what I'm alluding to. There's a gap there. There's a big hole in our churches where young people, especially young men again, are not being taught these principles. There aren't any Bible studies, any Zoom studies where it talks about biblical manliness or biblical womanhood for young people, not for old guys like me and you, but for young people who don't listen to their parents, who are on their phones all day long, who don't have a job, or always on TikTok, or maybe they have great parents, and yet they're listening to all these things, and they need to know kind of where the church stands. And not the church as in religion and all these kind of rules again, but just, hey, I get what you're needing. What can we do? How can we? Here's what the Bible says. and not just verses and sermons, which are great and I love them, but teaching on these topics of being responsible, of having good hygiene, of taking care of your woman, being respectful, choices that we make, accountability, all these things that I think even back in the 80s or 90s when I grew up, they were, if anything, they were just way on the other side of like, don't touch, don't think, don't look, it's just all these don'ts. And then now the last 40, 50 years, 30 years, what's happened all the way to the other side, where men are women and he, she, and it, and all these things, where everything's permissible and everything's like the Bible says. So now there's no respect, or there is a lack of strength for young men. Or if they do have strength, they either, I don't think they become violent, but they give it to sports or to fantasy football or to hobbies or maybe weight training and all fine things, but they're not receiving teachings when it comes to relationships. And we need examples, and not just sermons, but to me, podcasts and content and conversations where we can have 4 or 5 or 6 different young people, maybe with a coach or a guide or a facilitator like myself or others, who can together, without judgment, without saying, don't do this, don't do that, and the Bible this. Yes, of course, we're talking about biblical principles, but you know what I mean, where there is conversation and teaching on biblical manhood. Looking at these books, I have this book here, I'll show you here, hold on. The one I was mentioning, by Rollo Tomasi, that's his name, called The Rational Male. And going through this book and saying, okay, here's some things. I'm going to sneeze, excuse me. Here's some things. Turn this mic off. Excuse me. I don't think that even worked, did it? Okay, sorry about that. I think I sneezed still and you heard it. But anyway, so hopefully you're okay. All of you 2 million listeners. But where we can take a book like this, and there's another book that I love called The Evolution of Man by Dr. David Buss, that talks about sexuality, not only in the don't, and guess here's the thing, everything is in the Bible. I've read all these books, I've studied it, I've looked at my own life, the lives of many, many thousands of young people. The Bible is the answer. Everything, every truth is in the scripture, but we have to use tools and language, and most of all, environments such as this space, a podcast, let's say the Fresh and Fit, but from a biblical perspective, but with that same kind of honesty. Oh, sound very low. Okay, thank you. Yes. Now, yeah, there we go. Now it's better. Yeah, thank you so much, Araceli. So yes, where I wonder what happened the first time. Anyway, I think I did turn it down, but anyway. So where we are teaching young people, young men, 18, 20, 21, some of these principles that are biblical, but that have a real understanding of the issues that young men deal with when it comes to relationships and biblical manhood and how to treat a woman. Otherwise, these young people turn 25, 30, 35, 45, and they are only going to repeat the same mistakes of their parents or of their dads or of their friends or of their past, and simply live in this continual hiding, which is what our generation did and the previous generation. So you basically have the older generation before us ignored it, even though the same things happened. Our generation hid it. This younger generation, they're just acting out. And so none of us have done this the right way. There hasn't been enough conversation. And I don't mean Bible teaching. I mean teaching on these topics as it pertains to manhood and biblical manhood, sexuality, relationships, money, fitness, spiritual wellness, psychological wellness, the whole 9 yards. And now with these guys, as I said, Andrew Tate and Fresh and Fit and all these different people who are basically YouTube famous, and now they're being banned because you have people who say, no, that's not good to listen to that. We have to ban and cancel these voices. Probably rightly so to some degree. And yet what happened to this guy, Andrew Tate, when he now went to Rumble. I think yesterday he had 113,000 people like watch his thing. I don't know if it was live, but I'm not on that platform, but that's what I saw. Hold on. Okay. And so you have all of these different things, platforms. Anyway, 113,000, mostly young men, 18 to 20. So these are our kids. These are your young niece, not niece, but nephew and cousin, and maybe your grandson even, or maybe it is your son, or whatever, someone's son, right? For me, I do have a 19-year-old. And so this is the things that my son is thinking about and dealing with every day. And of course, he has an amazing father, right? And a mother, a stable family of 30 years of being together, 27 married, 2 of dating, 2 or 3 of dating, 30 years that he has seen. Well, he's only 19, but he's seen what biblical manhood. And yet I have to also continue to learn because of my own trauma, of my own things, choices, and upbringing. And as I said, because our generation hid everything, because it wasn't something to talk about, then I'm always working against something. Everyone is, right? And even though we have biblical models and a million sermons, and some people don't even have that, right? They haven't gone to church in 30 years or 20 years or whatever it's been. And so you have, or even if they do have church in their background, they have these kind of almost like elementary thinking about when it comes, elementary or basic thinking or teaching when it comes to this Adam and Eve. And that's about it, right? And Song of Solomon and what don't be unequally yoked, and all these verses, only verses, which, as I said, are key and are very, very important because they are guidelines. But when it comes to the amount of content that there is today that is going in a different direction that sounds almost biblical, that's the thing about this. And this guy, he even quotes verses. I think maybe even in this interview that I was showing you, he quotes scripture. Maybe it was another podcast. He talks about how if you build a house upon a rock, Matthew 6, then it will stand the test of time. But if you build it upon a sand, it'll fall. He's talking about biblical principles. And trust me, this is no man of God. This guy, as I said, it's not what he's showing. It's not what his life is about. And yet he's using biblical principles to speak to young 18 to 22, 23-year-old young men who are starving, especially in the West, here in the States, in Europe, in different parts of the world, that are starving for guidance online, right? Where most of these young people are. And then guess who they talk to, or who do they affect? Their young girlfriends, their future wives, their friends. And so this spreads. And so that's why I'm here, on this platform. I don't mean this platform, like wherever you're watching me, but I mean online, because this is what needs to happen. And I'm just I'm not beginning. I've been doing this for 15 years, and I have 1-2 people watching. I don't even care about that. The point is, because it may not even be me who is the person. My point is, that's why I have all this gear and all these tools, and I have been consistent at this for 10, 15 years. Not just church. I love the church. I have given my whole life to it. Nor am I also advocating for a secular kind of person. Just become some secular person. No. I think that's just as useless. You have to go back to the things of God. But more than politics and more than the economy and all these things that just somehow they catch the mind of the religious person. People become so infuriated with the president and the vaccine, all these things that matter for like a moment. And all along, young men and young women are starving for attention and for guidance when it comes to relationships, their mental health, their fitness, their financial goals, their lack of dating, the fact they don't have anyone to date, or the fact they don't even know what to say. Or maybe, as I said, they made some mistakes and the church usually tells them, well, you're out of here, or the world just says, welcome and just be like us. So there is nothing in the middle. That's a biblical teaching. And that's why I'm here. And again, I'm not saying me. And as I said, I may just be the producer of 10. That's really my goal. My goal is world domination. I want to dominate the waves, the online space, with biblical teaching that is relevant. I don't mean like that is wishy-washy. I mean that is connecting young people to, hey, what do you think of this guy, Rollo Tomasi? Have you read these? He has 3 books. One is actually on religion. I'm reading it. I'm reading this first one. It's 3 of them. Because nothing's new under the sun. We know that he's not saying anything new, but it's based on science. It is sexuality. It's things that everyone deals with. Everyone is having sex still, from what I can gather, right? No matter if you're 20 or 50, right? Or whatever. And we know that sexuality and relationships are mostly broken. 50% in divorce, Christians are not. We know all the stats, right? And as I said, the church continues to kind of do its own little thing, really not knowing how to handle this hot potato. And politics, I come from a political country. I could care less about the church and politics or the economy. But some people, they get hung up over that. I am more concerned with the physical, mental, and emotional state and status of especially young people. Everyone matters to me, young, old, black, white. But obviously, as someone who has committed my life to mentoring young people since I was, in my 20s, for 30 years now, and now having 3 beautiful young adults, 23, 21, and 19, of course, and my church is, I would say, 80% people in their 20s. And the fact that we know that this Gen Z is the largest generation right now. So my point is there's 1,000 young people, right? I mean, everywhere. I mean, that's the way it should be, right? And so we have to have programs, I guess that's one way to put it, podcasts and TikToks and content and real life relationships, most of all, where we are guiding these young people and then us as older people. I mean, I have the training, I have the experience, I have seminary, I have all these things. This is my life. This is what I've committed myself to. But we need 1,000 of us, not just one, as I said. And because even men my age, most of us, as I said, Gen Xers, we don't have any understanding except what I did or didn't do, what I'm hiding from, what I didn't hide, what I shouldn't. All this guilt and shame and fear and blah, blah, blah. That, yes, it's good to share those experiences. It's good to sort of talk about those things. But even that, what's the point of just saying, hey, here's what I did? And just to share your experiences. Or our parents' generation, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that. And then boom, things still happen. And then what? Guilt, shame, get out of the church. And then that person just gets lost. Or they become this secular human being, or they become this humanist or nihilist or whatever, right? And so my point is that I think this relationship topic, mental health, as well as financial wellness. I don't mean like being a millionaire or get quick rich or even saving, all that stuff. I don't mean, those are great tools. Those are wonderful tools once you have the right mindset. That's, to me, what I teach is mindset. There are people that are professionals at financial stuff, even at church or at music. I mean, whatever. I don't mean that I'm not into those things. My point is that that's not my desire. My desire is to teach mindset. Because if you can change the mind of a young person or impact them, right, then you've changed their lives. And if you can, most of all, reshape their mind, if they have had trauma or just simply wrong teaching or bad examples at home or friends that are leading them astray, or religiosity, where they're afraid of even looking, at the girl online or clicking on like on the Instagram model or the Instagram cute girl. And so you have all this stuff. And now, because as I said, there isn't a hiding of that. There is just permissibility. Then the church, or even forget the church, just parents and young people, most of all, are kind of stuck like, okay, I guess it's okay. And you're a woman, you're a man, you're kind of both. You're a he. All these things that we're facing, that really the church, politics, government, the financial system, Wall Street, the West doesn't have any answers to, right? And as I said, I am a firm believer that the church, no, I wouldn't say the church, that Jesus and biblical teaching, as I've examined it and I've looked at it, this is not the Bible, it's just a book, but my Bible that's over there is, I've looked at all this stuff, behaviorally, kind of a neuroscience, when it comes to, of course, as a biblical scholar, person who studied theology and the Bible, but also from the mental health point of view, financial point of view, emotional point of view, relationships. It is in the scriptures. Absolutely. It is all in there. We just have to know how to teach on this and how to be just chill and relax, how not to be so mad about these topics and so crazy about it. And so like, oh no, just do the right thing and beat up on our kids or getting into fights with our children or getting all, or like I said, we become all afraid of even these topics because of our own guilt and shame, or maybe we think we got it so right, like, oh yeah, we did it right and we're the perfect parents, or the opposite, we're so imperfect, about all these things that happen. So you kind of have to, I think, just understand a little bit of everything. And just reading some of the comments here, so thank you again for being here. Thank you guys, to Arcelio and to West Coast Gaming. Yes, what's up? So these are some topics that are very important to me, and I think to millions of young people, 18 to 22, and therefore to society, because these are the young people who in 10 years will be in their 30s and 40s. I mean, this is how life works. And there will be another Andrew Tate, right? Even if Andrew Tate has been canceled, he's now on Rumble or whatever, or Fresh and Fit, what if they get canceled or whatever? We're not going back to the days of the 700 Club, right? Thankfully, or PTL, or and there are a lot of great young, or even people my age, pastors and leaders that are talking about these things on a consistent basis. So this is a wonderful time to be alive, especially when it comes to this amazing tool called the internet, which to me, I think the internet is my religion. People say, what are you talking about? I believe in God and Jesus, the Bible, the cross, of course, the blood of resurrection. I just mean this tool. It's like saying cars are my religion, meaning like, why would I not want to drive a car instead of walking somewhere, right? This amazing tool, which the devil, yes, can use just like any tool, is one way, and I think one way to get this message out. But I do think that even with what happened with the pandemic and Zoom and all this stuff, I was interviewing, or actually not an interview, but I was going through the training of, I'm going to be teaching at this Bible college here in the next few weeks. So I'm really proud of and really thankful for. And they were saying, well, do you like online teaching? I said, no, I can't stand it. I can't stand online teaching. My seminary degree and training was half normal, like meeting, and this was before the pandemic, just the way it was set up even before that. Half in person and half online, even before the pandemic. This happened like 5 years ago. And guess where I succeeded and totally like just did amazing? It was in real life, in person classes. And where I struggled, my grades somewhat, but just with even getting into this and even caring with some of the topics that were so important to me, it was with the online stuff. And imagine that's me. Now imagine a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 12-year-old who has so many distractions and all these things that are. My point is that I don't believe in online training. I think it's just not very effective. I think it's maybe the fastest way to get through school, and definitely it's for a lot of young people, it fits kind of their culture of clicking and blah 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 and all that stuff. But as far as social proof and conversation and input, and even feeling like, okay, I don't know as much. That guy really knows. Oh, she's cute. Oh, wow. I like this teacher. I don't like this teacher. It's hot in here. All of these normal things that make a human, and we learn through social behavior, social interaction, are largely gone because of the online space. So to me, even though this is where we have to be, because billions and billions of young people are here. I don't even mean like here, like really the only place that matters to me these days is Instagram or TikTok. Nothing else matters. Not YouTube, not Facebook, none of these things, not Twitter. Young people, which is what matters to me, the people that I am speaking to. Now, I'm on Facebook here, and I'm on Twitter and YouTube and blah, blah, only because obviously we're all connected. But as far as getting this message into the hands of the people that I really want to train, it's all about Instagram and TikTok. That's the only place, and I put all my content on there. Short form and stuff. YouTube is good, I think, to some degree because it is more conversational. And if you have more of a entertaining kind of show and funny and with sound effects, all these things that I'm working on. And as I said, I'm not here to be that person. I think if I can be a part of it or produce 1,000 or 10 or 5 of these shows that are talking through some of these things, then that's really my goal. But my point is that I think YouTube and I think even audio podcasts, my son, who's 19, and all his friends, none of them listen to audio podcasts. That's just more for me and people older, or on Facebook. David, my son, he's TikTok and some, YouTube, because of like if he's gonna learn a game or if he's fantasy football, blah blah, blah, or what else did I say? Yeah, that's it. TikTok, Instagram. I don't think he does Instagram, but obviously a lot of young people, mostly like millennials, like 20s and 30s, they use a lot of Instagram. And so a lot of the young people that I currently connect with, I have maybe, I don't know, in my school of, I don't know what I would call it, of biblical manhood, I maybe have like 25 to 30 young people that are following me and connecting with me on a regular basis. So that's very significant. And I have maybe, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 others in real life that are connected to me on a consistent basis. All of them are on Instagram or TikTok. I have this little, 10-year-old that at church, he's always quoting my podcast from TikTok. He's like, you said this and you said that. I was like, man, I hope I didn't say anything too crazy, And then today I was at this event and there was this young man I sat next to, and he's like, "Oh yeah, man, your latest." What's up, my brother Larry? Your latest podcast was so amazing. And I'm like, "Wow, I didn't know you were listening." He's like, "Oh yeah, it's about relationships," and then he just went on and talked about what I said. And so the content matters. And in my heart, my brother Larry's, and is a perfect example of this, is to bring this message to people, this message of hope. He does it through hip hop, and oh my goodness, just a beautiful young man of God who I have the privilege to know. And he's doing it through music. My goal is to do it through music as well, and preaching and teaching. But as far as this, it's through podcasts. Not just me, but a platform, creating a platform, creating, like I said, a mega media movement, a mega base of media and music and pastoring, where we can connect with 1, 5, 10 millions of young people, especially those young men, 18 to 25, 18 to 30, that are going through it and that need biblical content on how to be a young biblical man, so they can have guidance on all the major topics: girls, cars, and homes, I guess, fast cars, girls, and their bodies, I guess, money, right? The things that really matter to young people, to young men. They want to get married. They want to have a girlfriend. They want to have a car, right? A nice fast car. They want to have money so they can buy a nice shoes and a nice watch and dress the part, right? And of course, education. Now, for a lot of these young people, it's like, well, I don't know if that's it's Daisy, our dog. I don't know if that's the path. Many young people say to $1 million, and even that. How do we retrain, or not even retrain, but how do we give young men an alternative to, quote, being a millionaire online by age 20? Being that 90% of them aren't going to do that. It's like saying, I'm going to be an NBA star. And so the church Jesus is the answer. The church, not all churches, but let's say a few churches are doing an amazing job, but we need to come alongside. This is my passion, the passion of my brother Larry and many others, to provide content that is speaking to these young people's needs. Relationship, fitness, money, sexuality, cars, all these things. And not just simply say, no, but to guide them. Because no matter how many no's we say, that's what they want. And so we have to guide them. We can't just say to a young man, don't look at the hot girl, right? Or even at an old man like me, right? We can't just say that or even preach on it or quote a verse. We have to guide these young people so that when they do think and want and look and like and follow or are DMing the 18-year-old or whatever it is, that they have someone or a place, such as a show or content, TikTok, whatever, where they can be guided. And that really is my heart, to be able to be of assistance. And as I said, not just me, but create a platform, a mega media movement. Really three things: pastoring, which is the spiritual part, and mentoring and life coaching, which is something I love to do. Music, which is what my brother Larry and many others are doing through mostly Christian hip hop, because back to the tools, right? That is what 90% of young people listen to. And then through media. And those really are, and as I said, not just me, but to create a platform of those three areas, which we call Victorious, the kind of our movement that my brother Larry and I are doing, Victorious Records, but it really is more than just music. It's mentoring, music, and media. And to create this move of God where we have 1, 5, 10, 30, 50 content creators, myself being one of them, brother Larry Water Walker being another one, and we're growing so that our platform can provide all the tools, the focus, the mentorship, the guidance, the support, the place, the studio, so that more and more of this content can get out there. Being that we can't just have a PTL, as I said, or a 700 Club, or even Billy Graham, right? I mean, we love all those men of God. Now we have to bring Billy Graham to the TikTok generation. And we have to bring, I don't know, Carmen and some of these guys, Striper and some of the 80s worship leaders and to the TikTok generation. And I think that in music we're doing really well. I think that from what I've gathered as a music guy who loves worship and hip hop and reggaeton and all these things, and I'm not like, oh no, the devil's music. No. Like we go there, we bring light to the darkness. I think that we're doing fairly good, fairly well. But I think that where we're not yet conversational is in this space when it comes to relationships, sexuality, money, wealth, having a house. Yeah, as I said, it's not just advice on how to save. Those are great tools that come second or are auxiliary or come alongside. But to me, it's the mindset. When someone says, well, should I have money or not? That's where I'm talking about, at that level. Well, should I want a hot girlfriend or not? Should I date 2 cousins or not? What happens if I did, I have 2 baby mamas and the church kicked me out. So now what? What if I want to hustle and work hard and yet I don't go to church anymore? Or if I'm still kind of involved in my old lifestyle and I'm kind of just playing the field and kind of all these things that are the real things, which sermons, of course, we have to have Bible studies in church. We're just coming alongside in this amazing mega movement, mega base, and being on Instagram. And of course, I love Facebook. I mean, meaning it doesn't matter really. Like Paul said, I don't care who preaches the gospel or even what their intent is, as long as the gospel is being preached, let it go, let it be, right? So it doesn't matter what platform. My point is that we have to be mindful of that, and then be present, showing up constantly, and being a light to young people, and then just having fun. I don't think it has to be serious or boring or kind of like guilt-ridden or any of that. I think it can be fun because young people, that's why they're watching Fresh and Fit, because it's just entertaining. And this guy, ANDREW Tate, my goodness, he definitely is a new kind of influencer that is using kind of a lot of different skills. Unbelievable, right? Ty Lopez meets Jordan Peterson meets Billy Graham. I mean, can I say that? Is that sacrilegious? Gossipler right there. But as I said, because he mixes in Bible verses, and he says he's a Christian. He goes to church every Sunday. How about that? And he has like 10 hoes, in all his videos. And I mean, that's just what he's selling. And he has, like I said, 100,000 people, young men in his Hustlers University, charging them $49 a month. Made him a millionaire, and all his Bugattis, all his cars, and all these things that he shows you that young men want, Christian or not, doesn't matter. It's biology. It's like I said, like Dr. David Buss's book, The Evolution of Mankind. I'm not talking about like evolution versus creation. I just mean the reality of being a man, of mankind. The fact that men want multiple partners and women want loyalty from one man. Just that basic reality. When was the last time you heard that statement in a sermon? Then yet every young man and every young woman knows that this is true, right? That's what these guys are talking about. And they're preaching on it every day, 1,000 times a day. And so we have to do our part. Okay, well, that's all I have, guys. Thank you. Leave me a comment, share this video. And if you want to be a part of Victorious Media Movement, then you know how to reach me. And if you'd like to host your podcast with us, then we're here to help remotely, in studio. I love being a producer of all things music, media, and pastoring. If you would like my coaching, my personal coaching, I don't have Hustlers University. I have love and knowledge and the Bible, and I have empathy and training, and yes, I have education, blah, blah, but that's besides the point. Most of all, I am here to provide guidance. I've done it with our 3 children, my wife and I. It's not just me, the 2 of us. And so I have the proof is in the pudding. Look at my kids. And that's my greatest proof. And so I can help. I want to help young people, young men and women in that age range, just with all these things that they're dealing with every day. And to be insulary to the church, not insulary, auxiliary to the church, to come alongside the church and the amazing job that pastors and leaders and churches are doing to provide help to young people today. Okay, thanks so much. I will talk to you later. Thank you for all of your support. I'm going to turn off the stream here. Thank you again for being here. Leave me a comment. Get this out to 5 people. Let's go. See you later. Bye-bye.